Hey everybody, Ian here from the GameBrew podcast. Just wanted to let you know before we start this episode that we will be spending the second half of the show talking about sex and gaming. So if that's not something you're into, or if there are young ears present, this is probably an episode for you to skip. Thanks, and I hope you enjoy the show.
Is it not supposed to be this big?
That's what she said.
That's what she said.
Well, I thought it was too small. I looked up a recipe and I was like, this is tiny. So I tripled it.
Oh my god.
This is a Sex on the Beach for
Perfect.
babies.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Big
I was like, there's no way this drink is supposed to be so tiny, right? So
Allison
I just
upgraded it to the orgy on the beach, apparently.
The orgy on the beach.
Okay, no. It's just a three-way.
Jesus Christ. Hello and welcome to episode 67 of the GameBrew podcast. I am your host, Ian Jean-Luc Picard Richard, and today I am joined by Allison Lara Croft Vandevender.
Ooh, I get to rate some tunes.
Hell yeah.
Will Harrison Jones Shell.
Why don't I remember who Harrison Jones is?
He was the spoof like Indiana Jones guy in the WoW.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess I'll rate some stuff too, but not.
In WoW,
Not as
so
good.
less cool.
Yeah.
Chris Dora the Explorer writes,
In the script, you clearly say explorer, so I don't understand why you're trying to make that.
oh my god, damn
Gangsta.
Cultural appropriation.
it. And Dan Nathan Drake writes,
I'm surrounded by so many beautiful ladies, and also I climb things real good.
must be hard.
And or like a mass murderer.
It is. Trust
Mass
me.
murderer.
On the first half of the podcast, we'll talk about games for which we walked the walk of shame. And in the second half, we'll get down and dirty with our sex and gaming topic. But first, it's time for a beer. Chris,
Here it goes.
what are you drinking this week?
Well, a couple different things, I believe. I think all of us kind of have our preferences. I
We do.
prefer
For beers.
things that
For
are
beers, of course.
brown, like hair and beers.
Yeah. Like brunettes or browns, right?
I mean, that's
Yeah, how come we have beers that are blondes, but we don't have beers that are brunettes?
well. I
'Cause
mean, we
it's
don't
a
have
missed
redheads, but we do have
opportunity.
ambers.
It's a missed
Oh, I guess
opportunity.
Yeah, there are ambers, but I don't even know that you would refer to someone's hair as amber. It's more like waves of grain that are referred to as amber.
That's
that's
also like
true.
America is referred to as having waves of grain.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, anyways, I really enjoy brown beers, brown ales. So I have Creator Destroyer from Oliver Brewing Company. It's an espresso brown ale.
Oh, that sounds nice.
nice.
How is it?
Yeah, I haven't had it yet.
Well, I will get that shit up in your face, my dude. Yeah.
All up in there.
It's a lot of coffee flavor in that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're going to be up late.
Oh, you're going to be up so late.
I hope so. So yeah, it's a brown ale from Oliver Brewing in Baltimore.
Nut.
Yeah, it's got a really
Excuse you.
strong espresso flavor.
And so it
it's like a little
begins.
bitter from it.
Yeah, right.
But, yeah.
Nice. I like whenever it has that nice coffee, like espresso-y
That
flavor.
Yeah, that head looks great.
Haha.
Man, the sex episode is just going to be an adventure in double entendres.
Yep.
Yeah, but it
Disclaimer.
is very bitter, and usually you don't have like coffee mixed with a brown. It's usually like with a stout or a porter.
What's the alcohol
Interesting.
content like?
Oh, it's a 6%er.
Okay,
Nice.
respectable.
Okay.
It's no pumpers.
Dan, what do you got over there? I saw some different colors. I see you have different preferences than Chris.
I do. I mean, I consider myself a gentleman, and they do say that gentlemen prefer blondes. So I am drinking. It's a golden ale, also referred to as a blonde ale most times. I'm drinking Flying Fish Brewing Company's Farmhouse Golden Ale. It is a Farmhouse Golden Ale. It's got hints of lemon zest and crisp wheat and light maltiness.
Can you taste the amber waves of grain?
No, I cannot. It is very good. It's very easy, and that's how I like my beers, is easy. So
Easy beers.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Right.
have beers, right.
Totally.
Let's gonna leave it there.
Probably 10-20% off there, Dan.
Dan's all about
Yep.
Dan's all about
Oh, hello, ground.
Dan's all about mouthfeel when it comes to beers.
Oh, man.
Yes, I am. It's good mouthfeel.
I prefer, like, the body, you know?
Yeah,
I
little
gotcha.
body. Allison, what are you consuming over there?
For one, I hope all of our parents skip this episode. I'm just gonna throw it out
Dan's
there.
parents never skip episodes.
No, my mom skips every episode. My dad will love this.
Okay, great.
Well, I don't care about hair color, so I'm just having sex on the beach.
Oh,
And
okay,
that's
but
what
what
I'm
are you drinking?
Oh, I'm also
That's a
drinking.
rather
Drink.
large concoction there.
Yeah, I
mean,
tripled the formula.
She likes them big.
I tripled the formula. Yeah.
Good lord.
It's
The entire formula or just the alcohol portion?
No, the entire thing. I do
Okay,
have
I was just
juice in
making
here
sure.
that's tripled as
Okay.
well.
Okay, good.
Did you put triple sec in it?
No.
Because then you really tripled it.
No, that wasn't in the recipe. Why would I do that?
I'm sorry. I was trying to make it funny.
What's
Listen, she
I'm
follows.
sorry.
You got to follow all the rules when you're
What
having
is
sex
in
on
a
the
sex?
beach.
Sex on the beach is a very precarious situation. I would like to point
Sand,
out.
seawater.
Yeah, it's
Oof.
not a
There's
good
just
idea.
Like around here, like homeless people, like you got to find the right.
It's too
spot if
messy.
you're gonna
It's
make it.
trash.
Too messy.
Yeah.
Too messy. Not
Unless
not,
you have a tent.
Well, if you have a tent, then that's camping, and that's not. Never mind. Okay,
It's not sex on the beach.
that's not
It's
sex
sex
on the
in the
beach
tent.
anymore. Now it's camping sex.
All right.
That's sex in a tent.
So it's mostly vodka, and then peach schnapps, orange. Well, I did pineapple juice. It said orange or pineapple juice, so I did pineapple. Cranberry juice, and then chambord, which I'd never had.
I don't know what that is.
It's a raspberry. Is that it? Am I saying it wrong? A raspberry liqueur? You could be right. It was the first time I've ever even seen it. It was a really
This
cute
is the
bottle.
Game Brew.
Yep, Chambord.
We pronounce things badly. This
Game
is
Brew
No, we're
facts.
good at
We
it.
can't pronounce things.
It's a liqueur.
Yeah.
I like that you used pineapple juice. They say pineapple makes it taste better. So
See, I was gonna.
Okay.
I can't even do it. I can't even respond to that because
There's nothing to say.
All right.
I'm just saying it
All
tastes
right.
better.
Well,
It's true.
Pineapple.
Speaking of pronouncing things poorly, I am drinking Smithwick's Red Ale.
Oh my
Smith-
god,
oh,
that's
yes,
so
Smithwick's.
wrong.
Smithwick's.
Smithwick. Oh my god. All of our Irish audience just changed the channel.
Sorry, bye.
They're just like, fuck you, fuck back.
So
have a Donnybrook.
I'm drinking the Smithwick's Red Ale, and it's. You know what? I wish it actually had more to say. Like, it's very consumable. It's just a little. It's too quiet for me. You know. Wish
It's
it was
just a beer.
contributing to the conversation.
You just when you just want a beer and you want to just nothing amazing, nothing bad. You just want to have a beer and go on about your day. That's what you have.
Yeah, but I feel like
for that.
the Smithwick's, like the regular straight up Smithwick's, is more interesting than their Red Ale, which is weird to me.
Interesting.
That's
Okay.
interesting. Well, just give it a little bit because sometimes reds tend to get a little crazy later.
Oh, okay. We'll just
Interesting.
keep it around for a little while.
They've got a lot of sugar in it. What are you guys talking about?
Will, what are you drinking over there, buddy?
So small backstory. We were at the grocery store
we go.
yesterday, and I was like,
Here we
"Oh,
go.
I should
Small.
small." It's like I was like, "Oh, I need beer for the podcast tomorrow." And since I missed the meeting last week, I was like, "I don't know what I'm supposed to get." So I texted Dan, staying at the beer section, and Molly was with me, so we're just perusing. And I was like, "Hey, dude, what do I need to pick up for the podcast?" And I was doing that thing where I was just like mindlessly reading out loud, and he responded. It's like, "Oh, we're talking about sex on the podcast. You need to pick a beer of the hair color of the opposite sex that you're attracted to." So like, "Oh, okay." So I reach for the door, and I look over at Molly. She's like, "So you're getting something brown, right?" And I just kind of reached
you
in.
close the door.
I closed the door. So I wound up with, to avoid that topic entirely, I wound up with a Bud Light Orange because I like different colored hair,
It's like
and I went through a punk phase. So I got the Bud Light Orange because I like things that aren't natural.
it's like you have to not do what they're doing, and I love it.
Well, I mean, I like
No, it's true. You know, yes,
I like
was thinking about that.
multicolored hair.
Yeah, it's fair.
It's like blonde, but it's got a little orange streak in it, so it's really cool.
Yeah, it's like orange.
Like
like when I was
old
in
school Haley Williams.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like when I was in school, I had different colored hair, and that's what I was attracted to. So I just
You should dye your hair again.
You had frosted
Yes,
tips
do
at one
it.
point, didn't you?
I did. I had
I've seen those
Did you ever do
pictures.
the Eminem
blonde
thing where like
tips.
the bottom
I
half
had
was
orange
blonde?
hair,
Or
I
like,
had
did you do
blue
like
hair.
the Justin Timberlake ramen hair?
Ugh,
I did
ugh.
kind of do something like that. Yeah.
So much gel.
Oh my
But
gosh.
no, that's I like unusual things. So that's
okay.
Oh, Molly's standing right behind you. So,
And about the beer, I'm gonna say this is actually good. I expected it to be nasty crap, but this is actually pretty good. It's a little too sweet for a beer, but if you like sweetness, it's almost like it pairs well with like a dessert or something, or as a dessert beer. They did well for Bud Light.
nice. Good job, Bud Light.
Pour it over some vanilla ice cream. You've got yourself.
And
a
I
little
followed
dessert.
instructions. Dan's only instructions were pick a color that matches the hair. I followed instructions.
Can't
That's
even.
true. He did. He did.
In the most tangential way. Okay, so let's move on to what we were playing this past week. Does anybody have anything new to report?
Oh, I finished Blair Witch.
No, we're editing this week. I'm going back to the sound.
No,
No, you're not.
Yes,
I'm sending
I
you the
just
blah, blah,
had
blah,
it.
blah, blah.
Why do you? Why?
Nope,
Why do
nope.
you not
Because
like fun?
I
Why are
like
you
fun.
anti-fun?
Why do
I just
you
think the other
hate
sound
fun?
is more magical.
It's more magical and less fun.
We've only got 2 more months of
we'll
this.
get-
Don't take away my blah blah blah
We'll
blah.
take a viewer vote on which noise is better. Continue. Continue.
Okay.
Sorry,
Dan, how long
but
is that
yeah,
game?
no,
Yeah,
I finished. I finished Blair Witch. And it was good. It was good. It met all my expectations from a Bloober Team first person spooky game. Especially because whenever you play these games, there's always different endings. So you have to like figure out, okay, have I been doing all the things for this certain ending? Have I been doing all the things for this certain ending? Can I give you guys some spoilers? Does anyone plan on playing this in the future?
I don't, but I would love to hear spoilers.
It's
but if
fine.
you don't want to
Okay.
hear
It's
fine.
spoilers,
Go
you
ahead.
can just fast forward a little bit.
Okay. So, spoiler alert. So there's like a bunch of collectibles and things you can pick up through the game. And I thought I was doing the right thing, but apparently it's the witch talking to you and telling you to do all of these things. So I was
awesome.
actually doing the wrong thing the whole time. And I was like, fuck, I screwed everything
They
up.
got
The
you.
only thing that I
That's great.
The only
I like that.
the only thing that I did that made her mad was that I did not kill my puppers because my puppers is a good
who's a
pup.
boss?
And you're a good boy. You're a good boy.
Chris, did you play anything new? Finish anything?
No finishes, no wows for me.
Oh.
Sad.
A sad whap whap whap.
Wow. But I was playing Grim Dawn, which is
Yes.
basically a isometric RPG similar to Diablo 2. So I've been playing that a lot. Really, I mean, I've always really liked that style of gameplay. So
Yeah, I also picked this up, and to be honest, I almost bounced off it because I didn't like the character classes that I started with, and I started 2 before I actually like got into 1. But I also love that you just like, it's like, okay, now you're level 10, choose another class to also be, and I'm like, yay, I can be all the things, because that's really what I want, is I want my character to be everything.
yeah, and there's like a lot of different like things you can do, like different paths you can take, because there's a lot of just customization with it. Like you get a lot of points that you get to spend and put in different things.
Yeah, it is really customizable. So for people who are looking for something that's a little bit more in-depth than a Diablo 3, but you still just want to smash and get loot, this is a great game for you.
For sure.
I do like smashing and getting loot.
Who doesn't?
I mean, smashing and booty is where it's at.
The old loot and boot.
I picked up Nino Kuni and the Wrath of the White Witch this past week and have been really enjoying it. I think I'm
Is that a metaphor?
no, that's the name of a disease that I have. So yeah, I picked it up this week. That's what I was saying.
Oh, I've got a bad case of the Nino Kuni.
Yeah.
That sounds dirty.
That's what penicillin is
Let
for.
me tell you,
Have a cream
burns.
for that.
No, so this is the JRPG that the Studio Ghibli animators collaborated on to make. And
they
it came
now?
out originally, it came out originally for PS3, and it came out on Switch a couple of weeks ago. And it's really wonderful, very wholesome story, actually really deep RPG systems, which I was not expecting. Like when you look at it, it seems very simple on its face, and then ends up being relatively complex, which I appreciate. Some nice depth there, and so far a really nice story that I'm quite enjoying. It's kind of got like a Pokemon element to it too, where you can sort of like capture enemies in the world and then use them as your pets to fight for you. So it's kind of got a collecting thing too. It's great.
Very pokey.
It's very
Do
good.
enjoy
Will,
Pokemon,
what
says
about
the
you,
guy
buddy?
in a Snorlax onesie.
I
I love
didn't
Lake
play
Day
Skip
like I
like
love
that.
my wife.
I love Link Day like I love my wife.
I didn't play any spooky games or anything this week. I had my last week of marching band season. My group did
Nice.
awesome. We won our last
That's
two
great.
things that we did. But I did
Congrats.
pick up and start playing a really cool choose your own adventure game, text-based RPG on the phone called, I guess you'd call it Magium, Magium. And it's really cool. There's save states in it. You can save at certain at certain points, and if you die, you start over or you go back. I save, so I don't know how far back you go if you don't save. I guess to the beginning of the chapter. But it's really good. The writing is really good. It's very descriptive in such a way that it's accessible for everyone, regardless of your reading level, and which I guess implies that I don't have a very high reading level or something. But it's really engaging. It's really fun. And it definitely keeps your attention. It's in short chunks, so you don't have to read too much at any one time before you give an action. So it keeps you engaged while being a very engrossing text-based environment. I really like it.
Nice.
That's interesting. And you've played some other like text-based games on your phone, haven't you?
Not really so much on my phone. I started 80 Days, which is very loosely based on Around the World in 80 Days. But growing up, I played a lot of the OG Zort with Dad on
Right.
an IBM PC Junior. So
Is that good?
that good.
And what was that? What was that game by Fail Better Games? That was a phone-based text game. Fallen London is what it was called.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That was a good one
played-
too. I liked
played
that one.
Fallen London for a little while and really liked that game. It was interesting.
They did well with that.
It was so complicated but cool. Okay, so we have all been there, hungover, as we often are. Still wearing the clothes that we were wearing the night before, and you sort of like wake up and rub your eyes and you hope against all hope that it was a mistake and it didn't actually happen. But alas, there it is.
Hi, welcome
Sitting
back.
in your Steam library with like an hour and a half of playtime, like it owns the damn place, is the game that you bought on bad advice. And there you are. You have it. The game of shame. It's happened to all of us. Mostly because of me.
Yes.
Just like to point
Ian's
out.
Yeah.
a terrible video game
But,
wingman is basically.
I will hook you up with something you will regret.
That Nino Cooney.
like
Get
the Nino Cooney, yeah.
penicillin early.
So this is the thing that happens though, is I will get excited about a game or a new release and sort of like go all in on the hype train and then end up purchasing something that I later regret. So I figured it was something that has happened to all of us, and I just wanted to ask, like, what is a game where this has happened to you?
Absolver.
Yeah, Absolver. I wonder why we started playing
I
that.
didn't fall into that trap.
It was definitely me. Here's what I will say about Absolver. And there's no forgiveness for its sins, but yeah. So I think the thing about Absolver was that like the fundamental gameplay loop was there. It's just that there wasn't any content.
Right. And that's what a lot of games now, we're seeing a lot more of that now than we have in the past, where they release unfinished, in quotes, games.
Right.
Where they're just like, oh, I guess we should release this now. And instead of actually being full, it is pieced together, or it's super buggy, or it's missing a lot of content. Any of that kind of stuff, like the Fallout 76 kind of
Oh
things.
man.
Yeah.
Oof.
I mean, it's one thing I think where developers are like, oh man, so our product, functions. So let's get it out, and then we'll release content later for it. And then that content sometimes doesn't come, or it just It isn't. There's just not enough to do, even if the core gameplay is functional and good, like Absolver was. But like just once you got to the end, it was like, okay, I'm not going to PvP people. Like the gameplay wasn't that compelling for me.
Right.
So,
So I'm out. Yeah, and some games come back from really bad launches. Like we've seen a couple of redemptions, No Man's Sky, Diablo 3. I'm trying to think of other games that sort of like redeemed themselves over time.
The Division.
The Division.
Yeah.
Definitely sort of a redemption story there. But so aside from my poor recommendations and general excitement about things that turn out to be trash, is there a reason that we end up buying games that we don't really want or need?
So I used to be really into getting games from Blockbuster when they were put on sale, so like N64 games, or just like stuff at like a we had a place called Record and Tape Traders in Baltimore. I don't think they're around anymore, but they had used games and stuff. So I picked up one called Marvel Rise of the Imperfects. Yeah. And this was like in high school, so like I feel like I wasn't checking online to see reviews for things as much. And I remember playing this game and it was just bad. Like it was just bad. And like I bought it because I was like into comic books and stuff, and I was like, oh cool, Marvel game, I like that. But just the gameplay was boring. You were basically, it was like a 3D fighting game. It just like wasn't good. Like it was just not smooth. It was just, the controls were clunky. The characters were basically all the same with like maybe one variation. So like I don't know.
That happens a lot, I feel, with like those big brand name things where it's just like, oh hey, here's another game in this, and you look at it, oh, this is really, especially with the older ones, because that was when that would work. Whenever it would be like, oh, it's a Marvel game, I'm gonna play this.
Yeah, like licensed games used to be huge.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, cool, look, it's a Marvel game, I'm gonna play that. And then it's just a pile of crap or like just quickly spliced together just to cash in on an existing medium. Yep. So instant regret. It's very, very fake.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, especially with like the licensed game. That's why they have a reputation. And I feel like it's better now. Like the Batman games, the Arkham games were really good, and
yeah, but
a lot of the Warner Brother games were really good.
I was gonna say, I feel like there have been certain like licensed games, like Batman. There have been good Batman games pretty much all throughout gaming. Like I can remember good SNES Batman games.
Yeah. I mean, yes and no, but like I don't know. There's always been the reputation of licensed games being kind of trash.
Yeah, like always movie games were kind of crap.
E.T.
Yeah. Although Aladdin and The Lion King were both
also
outstanding.
Trash.
What? Yeah. And the Star Wars games for SNES, those were good too.
The Super Star Wars games were interesting, but those were kind of cookie cutter. They like, that was the thing where they like made the template and we're like, oh yeah, we could do 3 of these.
What about the Titanic SNES game? That one was
There's a Titanic
awful.
SNES game.
What?
It's awful.
Explain.
It's like,
what is it?
Like you can play, I think you can play Jack or Rose. But I remember like Jack just like goes through, it's a side-scrolling platformer, and like
why?
It's
Who
dumb.
was like,
it
you
makes
know what
no
this
sense.
movie needs?
Yeah, it makes no sense to the movie. Like there are scenes in the movie that like remind you of the movie, but really it's just a side-scrolling punchy game, and it's very
When you
strange.
ever get to the car scene?
No, there's the car.
No,
there's no
the
like
car sex scene.
There's no car sex scene. There's just a car.
What?
There's a nod
boo.
to that
Why
existing.
buy the game?
Then why
there
even
you go.
bother
Look at
mentioning
that
it
lovely
for
screenshot.
this episode? This is what this episode's about.
I know. It's about the disappointment of that game in that there was no sex scene in lovely pixelated glory.
Do any of you have tips for like, because this is something that I struggle with personally, is like I see something, I get excited about it, and then kind of no matter what sometimes I read about it, I just like want to be part of the game release. So do any of you have tips for like not buying things that you're gonna regret later?
Go ahead, Chris.
You go ahead.
No, you go, Will.
I actually have had a really hard time coming up with a game that like is on my shame list.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm super careful about the way I spend my money on games because I don't want to get something that's crappy. I look
I was
up.
going to say use the Will Shell method whenever you're.
I mean, I look
buying
up a lot
games.
of reviews. I do a lot of reading. There's certain reviewers and websites that I trust more than others. And then there's also like word of mouth things. Like the only time I will ever spend money on a game not knowing what to expect is if all of us are planning on getting it and playing it at one time. And usually, even in that sense, like you all know enough about it or somebody does to where I trust your opinion. And it turns out to be fun because it's all of us together. But I just do a whole bunch of research. And weirdly, I impulse buy a lot of crap, but weirdly, games is not one of them.
That's funny.
Do your research, folks.
Yeah, I was gonna say like, yeah, don't always pre-order stuff. I
Hashtag no pre-orders.
try to stay off pre-ordering or by buying things before reviews come out, especially just because there's been so many games that have been bad.
And you have to be careful because like a review before it comes out is not necessarily like a real review. That could be like they were given the game and restricted from what they could actually say about that when they're talking about it. You know, like an advertisement, like a paid advertisement thing.
I mean, but with that being said, there's certain games that I'm like almost always going to buy for the night just because like I'm super into them. Like when Cyberpunk 2077 comes out, I'm getting it that night. Don't really care what the reviews say. I'm going to buy it.
Yeah.
If Keanu's in it, I'm buying it.
Yep.
So
It's good enough
I
for
plan
Keanu.
on
It's
doing
good enough
that
for
with
me.
Death Stranding.
So for me, like, so I think about this kind of in a couple ways. So the one that I related most to this topic for me was Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. I don't know if anyone else played that.
No.
Yeah, that's wise. So I liked the Banjo-Kazooie games back in
You
the
have
day.
chosen wisely.
They were fun little side scrollers, and then they were coming out with the Banjo-Kazooie for 64, and it was this game, and it was at first kind of marketed as, I remember reading it in magazines as like Banjo 3E or the third, and I was really excited that they were coming out with another one, and then I went and bought it, and I was so disappointed because it wasn't even like anything related to the other games, and I'm all for like a company changing, like trying something new, but like it wasn't explained right. And back in the day, like it wasn't easy to go online and read reviews or see honest feedback. It was mostly what was in like Game Informer
or Nintendo Power.
and you had to really wait for that to come to you to even see the reviews. So if you bought something day one, a lot of times you didn't have anything to go on. And I don't know. I think that everything you guys are saying is right and wrong. Like waiting on a game to release and deciding based on other people doesn't work for me because I don't always trust other people's opinions about things. Like I like weird things that a lot of people don't like and vice versa. So I really honestly try things myself before I create an opinion. I do the same thing with movies that I see. I don't trust reviews because I'm going to have a completely different opinion probably from anybody else. So for me, it's more like playing a demo if it's available before I purchase a game is big for me because then I get a taste of what I'm going to buy before I buy it, but I'm not relying on someone else's opinion.
I have this other, that's sage advice, Allison. Thank you.
Yeah,
as
yeah,
always.
you know.
So wise.
It's so wise.
It's so beautiful.
Ooh, thank you.
Okay.
Dan, we're not to the second half yet.
Sorry.
Calm it down.
Excuse me.
Gonna
Sorry, hold
need
on,
you
let me
to
zip my
take
pants
like
back
10 or
up.
20% off that squirrely, Dan.
Yep.
So this other thing that I do is there are genres of games that I always think I'm going to like, and then I buy the game and I try to like it and play it, but then I don't end up liking it. I wonder if anybody else has this problem.
Me.
You like
I'm raising my hands.
You like
it's
the
me.
idea of that genre or that game? But
Yeah.
Okay.
So like Prison Architect or this 2 Point Hospital game that I got, I'm like into it for like an hour and a half and then I just forget they exist.
That's how I am with most crafting games.
Yeah.
Minecraft, I go into spurts with it. It's kind of like, it's not really a one night stand kind of game. It's kind of like, I mean, it happens every 6 months.
It's your like friends with benefits.
Yeah, it's just like every once in a while I go play Minecraft a little bit and then I come back. But like, like Astroneer or...
I think is that on the list?
It's definitely on the list.
No Man's Sky, 7 Days to Die, The Long Dark. Any of these games are like survival crafting type games. I'm always like, people keep saying really good things about it. I'm gonna play it. I'll play it and I'll probably like it and I'll like finish it or whatever. And then I play it for like 2 hours and then I just go, this is boring. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm gonna go play something where things blow up or there's like shiny lootable things.
I feel. Oh, go ahead, Allison.
I was just gonna say I don't feel like I suffer from that specifically, but I do suffer from games that gave me this vibe of like I regretted it in the morning, but then they fix themselves. You know, they get better. They're in a better place now.
But it's the right time.
And it's the right time. You know, they've had some updates. And so Arcade is there for me.
Listen, if you don't like me at my Fallout 76, you can't get me at my Fallout New Vegas,
well,
okay?
That's the kind of problem I'm having with like Arcade is that I was so hyped for that game. Carrie and I actually, we were in for it. Like you could be a pirate, you could go be good, or you can be bad and go steal things. And like there was this whole idea of like that idea in the game. And then when you got in, it turns out you get banned for being a pirate if you go on trial and are convicted. And
okay. So sorry. Just a little bit of background. So Arcade is this MMO, and the whole idea of the MMO was that like literally the players made the rules for the worlds, right?
Right. So there were like these guilds, and if you weren't a part of Guild A or B, which were the big guilds on the game, like they controlled everything. So those players chose your fate, and if you weren't in one of those two guilds, and those people were against you on the trial, like you were banned from the game for certain periods of time for like stealing a little item because you wanted to be a pirate and you had to get your alignment to there. Like it was insane. I had never been so mad at a game in my life that I wanted to be amazing. And allegedly like they're updating it now and I should try it again is what I keep hearing, and I really just don't think I can. I don't think I can go back to that abusive relationship. I can't.
It was abusive.
Yeah, don't go back.
Toxic.
I feel like one of the main things for me with a lot of games that I kind of bounce off in that same way, like that I like the idea of, but then when I try to do it, I just kind of bounce off it, is like if they have just really complicated and hard learning curves that I don't feel like I want to learn.
Really? So, like, I'm surprised about it because you play a lot of difficult and complex games.
I do, but they're difficult and complex in a way that I enjoy. So like a lot of the like that game that Dan talked about earlier that Ian really likes where you're in space and it's Minecraft. I just don't really care that much to learn about all like, okay, I have to build this, I have to build this other thing, and to build that other thing, I have to build this other thing. So then like it's just like this complicated web of different things that I have to build, and that's
Isn't
just not
that like
fun.
how the StarCraft tree works though? Like you need pylons to have power, and then you need like the rudimentary barracks to build the advanced. No, that's the fucking same.
No,
it's laid out better.
No,
it's laid out to where it's less experimental.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, which is exactly why sorry, Capone, again, why we don't like Kerbal Space Program.
Hey,
is
I'm
because
okay
it's
with
not
that.
really laid out.
See, I'm
God,
okay
what a
with that,
bad
but that
game.
game is a little difficult.
I love that
Yeah.
game.
I've played
That
it.
game is great for people who, like, intellectuals
You
who
watch
are
your
smarter
tone.
than me. Like, that
There we
game
go.
is perfect for people who need an intellectual experimental outlet. And I am just not, like, I'm not dumb, but I am not that level of intelligent
let's
at
be
all.
honest. We're both pretty dumb.
Like,
that's why we
don't
this.
like it. We are not intellectual enough for Kerbal Space Program. Like, I can't.
The only way
do
I
it.
could get things to explode is whenever they hit the ground really hard. So that's the only
Can
thing
I
I
just
like.
say, the more you guys diss this game incessantly I haven't played, the more I want to play it. I don't know what that says about me, but I really want to try it.
Can we watch
what
you
we're
play
here
it
for.
on
It's pretty
Twitch?
Yeah, let's do a let's play. You'll enjoy.
I got this.
Okay, so
Me and Will do a let's drink somewhere else.
let's do a wrap question for this. So what I want to know is what are the like nerdy games and glasses and sweatpants who should be our ride or die games that aren't?
I'm so confused by that last question.
So the metaphor at the beginning was like games we played or bought that we regretted that we bought, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so now I kind of want to turn it on its head and ask the question, what are the games that we didn't buy or not into that we should be? Let me give you an example.
Okay.
From
Thank
me.
you.
Okay. So I feel like I always have felt like this, that I should love Minecraft. It's an open world, it's crafting, it's exploration, it's got all these different things you can do with it. You can like build machines to like harvest chicken eggs and stuff and do whatever. But for some reason I can't get into Minecraft. Can't do it.
I can follow up on this. Okay, so my lost love Craigslist thing, I guess it's going to be.
Misconnection.
That's what it's called. That's what it's called. So mine is
Don't you
Stardew
lie. It was
Valley.
casual encounters. Don't you?
That's another one.
So Stardew Valley is one that everything about it is what I should love. And like I love Harvest Moon. I love ongoing building games. Like I don't know. I just can't get into it enough to commit to playing it to a point that I'm doing anything. So yeah, that's mine.
Mine, I think, is Europa Universalis.
You should love that game.
I should love that game, but it suffers from the fact that it has such a steep learning curve, and I don't know if I want to like invest the time to really learn how to play it.
Yeah, but once you learn how to play it, that's like 300 hours of your life spent being happy.
At the very least.
Yeah.
Like it's Civ on steroids.
Yeah.
I would say probably mine is Bloodborne, not because we don't have fun when we're together, but because I just am unwilling to take that next step in the relationship.
And really commit?
And like really commit to being good at Bloodborne.
You need to turn that
Story
mirror on
of
yourself
my
and
life.
look inside.
You should really.
That's it.
I'm gonna take a.
That's a
I'm gonna
Dan
take
thing.
I'm gonna take a good hard look in the beer and see what comes out.
Will, what
are
about
you
you?
into kind of like that Lovecraftian phase it's going through?
It's a little weird, but you know, it's okay.
tentacly.
I think
It dances into tentacles.
It's okay. I'm into bangs. It's fine.
Mine would be actually Gran Turismo.
Oh, interesting.
That's a game that I just missed and I never bought. I never got into, but it was such a powerful force for racing games and the advancement of them that I just feel like I really missed out on something, and I wish I had played those.
You know what you would love about that too? Is you would love like buying Gran Turismo and then tricking out like a whole Gran Turismo setup where you've got like your shifting and acceleration and brake pedals
that
and like
I would
a
impulse
power
buy.
assisted steering wheel and stuff.
I would impulse buy that stuff.
Yeah.
God help me if I ever get Mech Warrior.
Oh
Man, I'm gonna go bankrupt.
Or was it
Did you
Steel
see
Battalion?
Steel Battalion, that one too.
Or Steel
Did you see
Battalion.
Will?
That's the one. That's the one.
That has like
He
the
built-
extreme. Yeah.
He built a mech in his
He
backyard.
built a real mech.
He built a real mech. He started mowing down cows. It was weird.
Oh man, that's like that one. What was that show on Netflix? The Love, Sex, and Robots. Where they have that one
with the-
episode with the mechs in the farm.
The
and
bugs
stuff.
and the mechs
That
and
was
the
sweet.
farmers.
That was
yeah.
one of my favorites.
That I cried.
I haven't gotten
cried.
there yet.
Oh, that's a good one.
Okay. All right, I got more watching to do. That show's pretty great. Okay, anyway, that's going to do it for the first half of the show. When we come back, we're going to talk about intercourse in gaming. So
Let's
stick
talk
with us.
about sex.
Yeah. Hey everybody, Ian here again from the GameBrew Podcast. Just wanted to stop in and say thanks again for listening. We really appreciate you as our audience. And, we wouldn't make the podcast if it weren't for you, so thank you. Please remember to like and subscribe to the podcast. You can do so on your favorite podcasting app or on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Don't forget, you can also come hang out with us in our Discord at bit.ly/discobrew. And if you have ideas for topic selections, you can send them to thegamebrew@gmail.com. If you wanted to do yet another cool thing, you could go to bit.ly/gamebrew and sign up for our Humble Bundle thing and get some free games out of it too. So cool. Anyway, let's get back to the show. All right. What are the things that I say? Hello and welcome back to the second half of the GameBrew Podcast. What? It's the second half
Who
of the
am I?
show.
Oh, what do I say? Hello and welcome.
That's what I say. Hello. We're drinking beers that are, that are similar to colors of hair for sexy reasons. Apparently.
For sexy
Yeah.
reasons.
Sexy reasons.
Yeah, you drink from that pickle jar.
I don't like this beer. I've decided. It
That's
didn't
okay.
grow on me.
That's okay. Reds aren't for everyone.
Generally, I like
Nope.
reds. Generally, I like reds and browns. Blondes, I could do with that.
None of this second half is going to go
I can.
appropriately at all.
I could never say no to blondes. I can never say no to them.
Rose
They're just so
Tyler.
easy. They're just so easy
To drink.
To drink.
To drink. I'm going to need to take about 10 to 20% off there, Dan.
Yep.
They are
Chris,
smooth.
Chris, how's your brew sticking with you?
I mean, I might be up for a little while.
Oh my gosh, Allison.
Hi.
That is a lot of vodka that you've consumed. Vodka.
He's a lot of vodka.
How much
you
vodka
Love
have
it.
you consumed?
None at all.
No, I don't feel it. This tastes like juice. It's too sweet, but hey, look, I'm doing it.
That's the pineapple.
You're doing it.
I'm doing
You're
it.
doing it.
Speaking of doing it, let's do topic number 2, which is sex in video games. So the thing about depictions of sex in games is that unlike a lot of other media, there aren't, in my opinion, a lot of good, I wouldn't say necessarily depictions or representations of sex in video games. Like there are books I've read where I've been like, that was a very tasteful and descriptive way to talk about sex. And there are movies that kind of movies that I've seen that I've been like, yeah, this sort of makes sense based on my own experience. But in video games, there aren't a lot of those. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to talk about some of the notable depictions of sex in games and to talk about how they fall short and what things could be done to maybe shore up their representation in games. Does that make sense?
My
That makes
time,
sense.
So,
my time has finally come. We're going to get to talk about Mass Effect.
Yeah.
yeah, that's
be
what I was going to
awesome.
say is that's like the first game that comes to
Yeah,
mind.
and I think it's a good place to start. BioWare has always included, well, hasn't always included, but in recent years, BioWare has oftentimes included lovemaking in their games. And what I like about what they do, that's right, Dan, lovemaking. What I like about what they do in their games is they do a decent job of making sure that it's not like sketchy. By which I mean, like, you can be a man and have sex with a lady. You can be a man and have sex with a man. You can be a man and have sex with an alien. You can be an alien and have sex with anybody. You know what I mean? Like, it is very equal opportunity in terms of its approach, which I like. But it still isn't necessarily as good as it could be. Yeah, Chris.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I was going to say I kind of agree with that too. Like, I feel like it was kind of one of those things where they felt obligated to put that in at all times for every option, and not just because you can doesn't mean you should. So, like,
Man, if that isn't good advice about sex, I don't know what it is.
but like I mean, it just felt like they're like, okay, well, she's in there, so it's gonna be an option. I liked that they made it so relationships were important in all those games, but like, to make the end goal always be sex is kind of weird too, because that's not always the end goal of every relationship.
Right, and I think that's a really important point. Yeah. Will,
See,
what were you gonna say?
I didn't feel like that was really the end goal. Like, not to make light of it, but I felt like that was more of like a side quest kind of thing.
No, it was the main quest.
Well, it was the main quest. Well, because you had, like, there were different, I played the male shepherd, and there were different female options. You know, there's human, there's, you know, alien with the Asari, you know, later in the
Liara
games there's
Tisonis,
Miranda. Yeah, Liara. And I thought it was really neat that you couldn't have that option with all of them. Like, you had to build that relationship with one specifically, and that's what you got. Like, that was it, period. You had to make a decision. You couldn't just run around and be like, okay, this play session, I'm sleeping with the Asari. Next play session, I'm going to sleep with the human. And I thought that was kind of a cool thing. It was a choice that didn't really matter in the game, but because that game is about building relationships and interacting with other people, I thought it was neat that I got to make the decision on who that romantic relationship was going to be with.
So I'm just gonna in The Witcher 3.
Nice.
In The Witcher 3, you're able to romance both Yennefer and Triss. Mm-hmm. So you can do both at the same time, but at the end, they'll kind of like, you'll get neither of them. So I think that's a better way of doing it. Instead of forcing you to choose one, they allow you to choose both, but then you lose.
But at a cost. I also just want to reinforce the original point you made, Chris, where like, I think the danger of the BioWare sort of style thing is that not just for women, but like all of those relationships, like all of the main character relationships, if you play them out hard enough, lead to sex. And it's not necessarily a good model for how life works. I'm not saying that video games should be models for how life works, but like in a game that's so much about relationships, you'd think that some of them would end in like a platonic, like we're best friends kind of thing going on, but that doesn't really ever happen in those games.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Like, it's something like, it's a game element and I had fun with it, but it wasn't, it's never, and with Mass Effect or anything else, it's never meaningful in any sort of way that adds very much to the gameplay experience. Like if you make a mistake and pick the wrong person, for example, there's no like awkward breakfast cereal the next morning on the spaceship.
You know what?
But there should be.
But there should be. Like, it's like it happens and then it's like, all right, let's go shoot some stuff like back to normal. Like there's no lasting effects and there's no meaning.
I remember Jack would just like straight up not talk to you after a while.
Yeah.
I don't remember
Fuck
that.
off!
I'm just saying, in Witcher 3, after the unicorn sex scene, there should be an option for you to be like, this was weird. Can we just like not have sex again? I'm not feeling it. Like, I just feel like that should have been an option because, yeah.
Weird. Speaking of that, Will, and sort of like the ramifications and sort of a more nuanced approach, it does exist occasionally in video games. The only time I could actually like think of an example and find it though was Firewatch, which is kind of strange. Yes.
Always talking about Firewatch.
Okay, but here's the thing. I don't know if you remember, but at some point in Firewatch, like it's not just heavily implied, but like basically it's like we are having radio sex now. Cut to black next day. If you choose like the right voice, if you choose the right dialogue options. And then what happens is like your relationship before and your relationship after, it changes. And there's like something different between you and you have like this shared experience between the two of you that's meaningful, but not definitional in terms of the relationship itself. And so that to me was like maybe the best representation that I could find, and like so much less problematic than things like God of War or Far Cry 3, which had a super fucked up sex scene in it, or something like Grand Theft Auto 5, where it's literally just there for like 12-year-olds to get their jollies off. I wonder if like we could take a step back for a second and talk about how the depiction of sex in video games differs in any other ways from other media, like if we're talking about movies or books or comics or whatever.
But I mean, so one of the things about sex in video games, and that kind of makes it a little bit different, is that in movies and like other media where you're not in control of the narrative, that kind of has a different, like it allows it to give you, like you're observing it. You are playing that like third party observer to like, oh, this relationship building and this being a part of that building relationship. Whereas in video games, it kind of gives you license to make the decisions into what, and again, that's kind of a lot about the Mass Effect and Dragon Age stuff. But also, yeah, in games where like God of War, where in like the first few games where it's just like, oh yeah, go back into this bathhouse from the beginning and you and these 3 siren ladies get it on in the hot tub. It's like it gives you license to do the thing, and that kind of dehumanizes it a little bit, I feel, just because it's like, oh, I'm playing a game, or like adding button presses to it. It's like, okay, it's a game now. It's not like a thing that it's not an experience or an emotion that people are sharing.
So for me, like it's kind of similar in a movie or in video games, but what Dan's saying is right, where because you're in control of the game, it sometimes feels weird or feels like out of place with what you're doing. Whereas in a movie, I think it's more generally accepted as okay, even though it may be the same plot device, I guess. So like in a movie, you have, or in video games, you have kind of either they're going for shock value by providing the sex scene. They're going for easy relationship development to tell you they're going to another level, even though maybe they're not portraying it quite right. It's just like an easy guide into that. And I feel like it really goes one of those two ways. They're either trying to show you that quickly or easily, or they're trying to just have it to have that shock value. And there's games like the first ever sex console game, X-Man. Like that one's the easiest describer of they were going for shock value.
God help me with the Googling on this one.
Yeah, no, it's an Atari 2600 game. It was like
so that predates Leisure Suit Larry.
Yeah, oh yeah. It was like early 80s, and there was no point in this game at all. It was like a maze where I think scissors, crabs, and chompy bits like are chasing after you, and you're this man who goes through just a basic maze, gets to a door, and if you get to the door, you're rewarded with a weird Atari sex scene.
Wow.
Weird.
Nice.
And that's it.
And you played it with a...
Yeah, it was a little joystick.
Joystick.
A little joystick.
Phallic.
So anyway, like that game was just there to be there, right? Like there's no point in the fact that it had sex scenes. It just did.
Whoa, those images on Google.
Yeah, no one
I posted it in the group chat.
should Google this, but okay.
No, just Google at your own risk. You might get a virus.
But like, yeah, that was kind of like the shock value moment where people were like, we could do this, so why don't we?
Right. Well, and that usually ends up being where it's a bad thing, you know, where they have made games which, you know, for controversy's sake, or the literal only thing about the game is like, oh, it's a sex game. Like, yeah, the Leisure Suit Larry games where, you know, they kind of approached it in a very tongue-in-cheek manner, or the original ones did, and then they remade them into like these in the, like, I guess the last couple generations of console, and they were a little bit less tongue-in-cheek and a little bit more crude, or like games
a little bit less tongue-in-cheek and a little bit more tongue-in-cheeks.
Yeah, or Duke Nukem, like it was those kinds of things.
Or like BMX Triple X, like whenever that came out, it was like terrible game made just to be, you know, just to be the it's an X-rated game. Oh, you guys.
Right. And I think there is this tendency in video games to go like it's really hard for a game to pull off nuance in anything, but especially in something like sex. It goes immediately from like no depiction of sex at all to this is pornography or approaching softcore pornography. There's no nuance in there at all. And I think part of the problem there is that is simply that video games are marketed and primarily sold to a primarily male, you know, like teen to 20s audience, and that's what they know will sell.
So then why are we still buying video games?
Well, what do you mean?
Because we're not teens to 20-year-olds.
I don't know. I would disagree with that. I feel like the target market for video games is way expanded beyond the 20s.
Well, it has now, but I'm saying like the majority of the marketing that's done is at that crowd because that they know that they're the reliable ones. It's not like, you know, I don't know. I haven't heard a lot of like teen podcasts talking the way we do about this particular subject.
This is true.
Maybe they're out there and I just don't know about it. I don't.
I don't know that many gaming podcasts would tackle
but
it the way we do.
But my point is that it does seem that the way that those scenes are built is reflective of the wider gaming culture, which is very like man/teen boy based.
So counterpoint, I guess, to that is there are games out there. I just don't know that you're thinking about them necessarily because maybe you don't play them that are depicting it in a different way that's not crude, I guess. That's just like kind of an it happens, like The Sims. I know that's kind of a weird one to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay, so like that's a game where it's involved in the game itself, and I know it was like controversial at the time when Sims 2 added it. I don't think it was in Sims 1. I'm pretty sure it came out in Sims 2, where you could woohoo. And I mean, it's a game about your life, and it's an important aspect of your life to have children. Whereas before, you just called on the phone to the stork, and the stork brought you a baby. And like, you didn't even need a significant other in there or anything. Like, you could just buy a baby, I guess. Like, it wasn't even felt like adoption. It was definitely buying a baby.
It's a late stage capitalism thing.
Yeah, black market babies. And so
.org.
So that was one where it was like you build a relationship with somebody, and it has to be at a certain place for you to even try to do this, and then you could go woohoo in the bed or the hot tub, or I don't know. There were like,
and that was it.
3 or 4 options, I think. There were more. There are more now, but like back then, I think there were at least 2 I know of. But you just kind of tumbled under the covers. You knew it was happening, but you didn't see anything.
Yeah, there were like animal
explicit.
like growls and stuff. And...
there were like noises. I wouldn't even call them sex noises. Yeah, they were.
They had like that same weird language, like herp burr.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like there was humor to it, which like there is humor to sex. Like there really is.
Sure.
Sex is serious business. Actually,
as weird as that was, like it wasn't pornographic. There was nothing like meant to turn you on about it. Like it was just a real life depiction of sex
of a thing that happens
in a different way. Yeah.
That is a really good point, and I'm glad that you brought it up. Did anybody play Heavy Rain?
Yes,
I started to.
Loved it.
So in doing research for this, I bumped into the sex scene from Heavy Rain. And I want to get your thoughts on it. But one thing that I noticed about Heavy Rain, that even at the time, so Heavy Rain was sort of at the time like very graphically advanced. Like it was a really beautiful game when it was released. And in spite of that, the sex scene in that game is like, it still just looks like polygons pushing on each other. And it occurred to me...
To be fair, that's really all video game sex is. It's just polygons pushing on each other.
To be fair,
right?
They weren't pretty polygons necessarily.
That could be. You could describe regular sex as that too. It's just weirdly shaped polygons pressing against each other.
That's a good point, Dan. But what I'm trying to get at is that we have these games that have like incredibly advanced animations of like people's skulls getting blown up. Like I'm thinking about the executions from Doom, and they look so realistic, where it's like very gory, very organ centered or centric, and you can see like all of the inside parts and the different things that happen. And yet when we depict sex, it's just like, it looks like, you know, a cardboard tube going inside of a cardboard tube holder.
I feel like with the Heavy Rain one, like even, you know, polygon on polygon love there is still like, I feel like that really added to the story. Actually, I'm glad you mentioned it because I forgot about that. Like I thought that was a really cool, there's so much that was implied that you just didn't see, which is fine because it's a game, I guess. That's the whole point of this discussion. But that really added like a cool relationship dynamic to those characters that played out later in the game with the way my story went. Like definitely played out and had an effect, you know, an emotional effect later on. So I really liked that. As far as, do I wish that it wasn't just polygon? I mean, it's a mature game. I mean, why not put more in there, to be totally honest? I mean,
okay, so we're getting a couple of topics here. Dan, did you want to respond to that?
Well, it's getting a little close because it's just like I think it's the way that I feel about video games in general. And I know I keep saying this over and over again, but giving you the license in that situation makes me feel uncomfortable because it's not, it doesn't feel like a real relationship in that it doesn't take long. And like, it doesn't take long enough, or things happen so quickly, even if there's things that you don't see or time that passes whenever you're not there. Giving me license in it, which is why kind of in the Mass Effect and Dragon Age games, I never really went after any of those like secondary quest lines because I was just like, I don't really have time, and I would feel bad because it's just superficial to me.
Listen, I got stuff to do. Like,
Yeah,
I gotta
laundry. Listen, I gotta go to work.
I got the world to save.
Can you let yourself out? You know. And
Dan, do you feel that same way when you're watching a movie or something and there's like a sexual component to the movie?
No, because I don't have any I have no control over it. Like, and that's kind of where my brain kind of separates between the two.
So I guess, do you enjoy it when you're watching a movie and there is a sexual component?
If it is handled tastefully, yes. I mean, if I'm involved in the movie and it's not just there because, oh, hey, we should put a sex scene here, you know, that can be a little weird.
I think the problem with Heavy Rain specifically, and I know you haven't played it, but when you play that scene, it feels weird because you have quick action responses you have to hit.
That too.
It's like a Force Awakens boss fight.
It's like you're trying to be good at sex for this scene, and it feels weird.
How is that unrealistic, though?
No.
Like,
Well,
like,
never
you
mind.
gotta
God, see,
be
I
in the
almost said something
zone and
terrible.
pay attention and not mess up.
She
You
was
gotta
about
do
to
the
say-
right thing.
She was about to say she doesn't have to try.
I
Will.
was going to say that, and then I was like, oh, that's shitty. I'm not putting that in the podcast, but oh well, there it is.
I'll put it
No,
on the
I'm kidding.
podcast for you.
I'm kidding. But like, the thing about it is, okay, and this is a weird admit to put out there to the world, so I guess I'm gonna do it. It felt
Here we go.
it felt like an old Newgrounds Flash porn game.
Old Newgrounds.
If for
Flash
anybody
porn
who
game.
even knows what Newgrounds
I know
is.
what
Newgrounds
Newgrounds
was where we
Yes.
went to go play internet
Yes.
games
Yes.
during study hall whenever
Yep.
whenever you're making sure no one's there. It's like you're playing Snake, and anytime you get a thing, the girl behind it loses a piece of clothing.
Okay,
or whatever.
finish your point, Allison.
So okay, so Newgrounds was a website where you play video games, and there was a section that was like an adults section where there were these weird porn games, and that's what that scene felt like to me. It wasn't tasteful for me, and it wasn't like something that was developing the plot in a comfortable way for me, because I felt like I was just playing a porn game suddenly because I had to react to the things happening to get further
see.
in the sex.
I see.
So it made it weird because that's not the game I signed up for, I guess.
I feel like that's totally realistic. That like that's like as close as you can get to like that situation of, okay, let me do the right thing at the right time. Let me not screw this up right now. I will not screw this.
Why can't I screw it up? What's
like, why would
what's
you
the harm?
like in a real life situation? Why would you want to? Is it like you wouldn't?
No.
want
She's
to
not
don't
saying
want
why
to.
would you want to. Well,
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's interesting that like in that way you're kind of like, I don't know if you're forced to. I haven't played the game, but once you get there, you have to finish that, or it's like game over.
No.
No, okay, I didn't know. I thought if you didn't complete it, like everything went really bad for your story. So
No, that's the cool thing about that game is there are like it autosaves constantly. There are no
Right.
do-overs. Like every
right,
action
and that's
you take.
why I was really panicked during that scene where I was like, I got to do this right, or I'm gonna just like fuck my save up. So it felt like I was forced to go through the sex scene and do everything right, and that felt weird for me, I guess.
So are there any games out there that you all would recommend in terms of like a game that has some sexy stuff in it that is actually good in some way? I know, Allison, you picked up Catherine Full Body the other day. I don't know if that's something that you would recommend or throw out there.
I mean, like, so I've just played the demo, by the way, not the full game.
Oh, right.
I don't even know if the full game's out yet. I could be wrong.
Oh, yeah. It
Okay,
came out
okay.
a while ago.
Just kidding. I don't know. Like I said, I pick up demos before I ever play anything. But I like that game as a whole. Like, it's well built, and I would definitely play it. And there's a lot of, it's meant to be sexy. Like, that's the kind of game it is. So I'm expecting it coming in. Like, I know what I'm getting into, and I'm totally fine with it. And that's one game. Like The Sims, like I said, I think is great. And I actually the scene with Sarah in Dragon Age, when you have that sex scene, it was just kind of funny, goofy, felt like realistic to me in that way. Like, it wasn't meant to be just like sexy and here's some background music for mood and things like that. Like, it just felt kind of fun and like awkward how sex should be for that first time. I don't know. I liked that one.
Nice. Anybody else recommendations?
I think it depends on Sorry, it depends on what your mood is for. Like, I mean, maybe you want to play Dead or Alive beach volleyball right now, or maybe you want to build some relationships in Mass Effect. You know, I mean, on the one hand, it's like sex appeal.
I don't know why you mentioned Dead or Alive beach volleyball. That's just a beach volleyball game.
Yeah, it's a volleyball game.
Sorry,
There's no sex
game.
in it though.
Yeah, there's no sex. Listen, just because I want to take the girl on a date and take pictures of her while she's hanging out at the pool, I mean, that doesn't mean there's sex involved.
No, you know, not at all. I don't know that I have anything to recommend. It depends on what you fancy and what you're in the mood for at the time. But
Mass
if you want a
Effect,
little of
you
everything,
always
I guess Second Life, or download some
interesting.
Skyrim mods.
Whoa, that's like a whole different sex in video games that we didn't even get to.
We didn't. Second Life would be, yeah, because that's like actual interaction with people.
Yes, that's some Penguin Club level shit. Chris, Dan?
I don't recommend sexy games. I only recommend serious games.
I don't recommend
Only-
saying, well, The Witcher, I think you're wrong. I think you recommend The Witcher all the time. And
That's
that is
true.
a sexy game.
Geralt is pretty attractive.
Yep.
He's got a good voice.
Doug Cocker, also a great name.
Yep. I don't know. I mean, there's still the BioWare things again, like the Dragon Age stuff. I always remember playing Dragon Age Origins whenever I was in college, and my one roommate took a liking to the one elven mage who becomes.
Took a liking.
Yeah. See, no, he literally did. He was like, oh, he's really
there.
cute. He was like, oh, he's really cute. Oh, and also he's like tortured. Oh my gosh, I love him. And so he like, and it was his goal. He was just like, I want to get this guy to be my boyfriend because it is amazing that he is so tortured and so cute, and I just want to be with him. I was like, okay, all right, I get it.
Okay, cool. Well, GameBrew verse out there, if you've got some sexy game advice that you want to pass along, or if you've had some experiences that you want to share, you can do so on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter. But I think that's going to be it for us tonight. So say goodnight, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Listen, I sleep better alone. You're gonna have to, if you could just close the door when you walk out, that would be really good, because I got a small bed, and I just really like to, you just gotta go. Sorry.
Sorry, that's not an option in this video game. You're getting in the bed with this person.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you failed. You have to restart from the beginning.
Oh, sorry. This do-over. Wrong option.